Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and we'll be doing a Rome 2 battle back to the historical ones. This time it's going to be featuring myself playing as Persia here, and our opponent is going to be coming down from the steps. Always interesting when you see this matchup. Whoops, overshot. It's going to be Scythia over here, facing off against us with these fantastic step noble answers with like the ram's horns attached to the front of the horse, I guess. I don't know what you call this little contraption over here that's over the horse's mouth. But anyways, that's where it's going to be attached. They also have some fantastic armored horse archers. Didn't bring any Scythian horse archers. I'm not sure if actually... No, Scythia should have a couple of them. I have brought some of my own mercenary Sarmatian horse archers, which are really great. So my enemy went for some more armored variants. Probably assuming I would bring in some of my own archers, which I have. He also has, well, these Scythian archers that we've gone over. Some royal horse archers. But these guys... or are they the javelin ones, the royal skirmishers? I believe, yeah, these are the ones. So these come with javelins, armor piercing, pretty good in anti-cavalry fights, and they can come in and clobber some of your infantry if they're otherwise engaged. So let's go over his build. So on the right flank, he's got some more step noble lancers. So he's got a far smaller army than mine, which is to be expected, but it's highly maneuverable. So, expecting that obviously the enemy is going to want to kite me with archers, what have I done? Well, I brought a lot of cheap fodder troops, 3 Eastern Slingers, and you'll notice that every time I deploy my forces, I'm going to have a staggered deployment, just in the off chance that the enemy decides to just plow through them. They're only going to hit 1, so I have 3 of those guys. I also have a couple of these Persian light archers, or actually one of them there, guarded by 2 of these Eastern spearmen. These guys are dirt cheap spearmen, meant to be deployed en masse by the Persians. And they were meant to do just this historically. They would have come up here with their big shields and just formed up with a massive screen up and down the front line, planted these things down, essentially formed a deployable barricade behind which all the archers would fire. And this, obviously, with these big wicker shields, would give cover to the troops and the archers. And anyone who decides to charge up the center is going to get a massive strike with all these archers firing into it. Combine that with the later adaptation of the Persians of heavy cavalry wings, and yeah, this is a deadly, deadly combo. But obviously, you know, if you're dealing with the steppe tribes, they were notorious for their skirmishing and cavalry prowess. And so that's why I decided to be a little bit more cautious. You can see me slowly moving up. So one of the ways people learn to deal with the steppe tribes is, well, hire some of your own. So that's what I've done. As I mentioned, I have 3 of these mercenary Sarmatian archers. Not as heavily armored as some of the enemies that you might see. So they're going to be kind of plodding along and just keeping pace with the core of my force. And that is something I need to fall back on, is going to be some heavy infantry. So Eastern Spears not being that heavy, but in the back I did also bring some more mercenary troops. This time it's going to be mercenary Greek hoplites. Very interesting. Persian Empire is so cool. It often gets overshadowed because it's wars with Greece, but at the time of the Greco-Persian wars, you have to keep in mind that that was a fling expedition pretty much on the far reaches of the Persian Empire, where they were busy doing all kinds of other stuff, and that was like a blip on the radar for the Persians. They're busy fighting on all kinds of fronts, doing a lot of battles to the east against the steppe tribes, pushing even further east to the reaches of Bactria, Sogdiana, places like that. And so the Greeks were kind of like a little thorn on their side, but relatively minor in the scope of the empire, until it came that Alexander the Great obviously came and invaded their territories and pushed. But even that was a 10-year campaign to get even further into the depths of the Persian Empire, so deep that it was. Anyway, the empire is going to the enemy is going to see that my forces are actually pretty flimsy, so their steppe lancers are going to get a brutal strike, absolutely massacring my light troops. So they are not going to be able to brace against that. These are super heavy cav coming here, very heavy shot cav. But what I've been able to do is collapse in on the enemy on the flank with my mobile forces. And yeah, he may be trading, he may be getting some archers, but at the end of the day, these guys are deemed expendable. And so I'm pulling the enemy into a trap. I'm going to countercharge in with some of my Median cav, and I also brought some of these camels because they do have the ability to scare the enemy. Some pretty interesting units there. And the enemy is going to still stick it out in combat for a little bit longer, after having only taken 2 losses. So these guys are super sturdy. They will probably lose more while they're pulling out. This steppe noble lancer down to 24, taking tremendous losses, and this one here going to rapidly lose more and more men as it gets caught up with my guys. So I'm going to pursue a little bit and then pull back. But as I was saying, with kind of that narrative that we were talking about, Alexander the Great obviously being one of the ones who came in and really dealt a knockout blow to the Persian Empire. I do recommend that if you're interested in this type of history, especially the history of Alexander the Great, definitely check out Epic History TV. I'll link that below, probably at the end of the video as well. But he and I have been collaborating on a series to cover the campaigns of Alexander the Great. I have been helping to supply the Total War footage for that, whereas he does these fantastic overarching views of the campaign, tactical views of the battles, explanations, all that, and just, man, that guy is freaking fantastic. He has an awesome voice actor who adds some gravitas, the music, the effects, everything is freaking great, so definitely check that out. And if you go ahead and watch his video, definitely say hi, tell him Oakley says hi. Oakley and Invicta, or just, yeah, keep an eye on his series. I believe part 2 is going to be coming out today. Part 1 was previously released, and that one went really well. I believe it's going to be a 4-part series that covers 10 years of Alexander the Great's campaign, so definitely check that out. It should be phenomenal. One of the most complete versions you'll find online, and especially, I think, combined with the Total War combat, it is one of the best visualizations of Alexander's campaigns you'll see, probably to date, which is awesome to say. Anyways, as the enemy pours forward after me, they're going to try and go after my general. But this is where I've gotten a little bit of an ambush. 2 elite Persian archers are going to pop out of the bush and fire straight into this massive pursuing cav. So the Persian archers have extreme range, good accuracy, pretty good weapon damage. So the enemy is going to make a beeline for them, but this is where I'm going to come back in and actually sacrifice these Eastern Slingers' dirt cheap troops to catch that blow. My archer is going to now fire point blank into this, so my opponent constantly going to be trying to get at the depths of my force, but I'm using Skaven-esque tactics with lots of cheap troops. And this is maybe one of the misconceptions about Persia, that a lot of people think that their army was, you know, mass troops, lots of essentially slaves and weak units, and that's the only way that they fought, was just throwing numbers at you, whereas that was not at all the case. The idea of them having tons and tons of forces kind of comes from the idea that they were composed of various satraps, and each of those satraps was expected to contribute forces. So that's usually what you would see in the Persian army composition, was a lot of units kind of stacked in the back, cheap-ish troops, and they were there to kind of show the flag. So you'd have all these exotic forces from across the Persian Empire, and they would have very niche roles, and they were there to the battlefield to just show their allegiance, expected to commit forces. But when it came to the fighting itself, the Persians didn't just throw numbers at you. They did have still pretty elite troops. Their infantry was pretty solid, obviously nothing compared to you know, the Greek heavy hoplites or the Roman legionnaires, but still pretty heavy infantry. And obviously reinforced a lot with, you know, by the time of the Greco-Persian Wars, and especially the time of Alexander, Greek mercenaries. To expound on that, you know, their infantry corps was very heavily Greek, especially during the Greco-Persian Wars, like I said. And actually, during the Greco-Persian Wars, there were more Greeks fighting on the side of the Persians than there were fighting on the side of, obviously, the Greeks. So that just goes to show kind of the varying composition of the Persians, what makes them so interesting, highly adaptable force. But they did suffer from pretty extreme internal turmoil at times that threatened to turn them apart, or tear them apart. But yeah, back to this army. I'm doing a bit of these Skaven pushes, and I really love these maneuverable Sarmatian horse archers. I do have to be a little bit wary against these armored horse archers. They won't trade too well, and these steppe noble lancers can charge in and zone me out. But my guys are pretty fleet of foot, so I'm not too worried. And as long as I have my slingers to pull back on, I should be okay. You can see him catching me somewhat, so 2-3 of my models are going to be going down. But meanwhile, all he's done in that pursuit is expose himself to some of my slingers this flank, or actually archers, elite Persian archers here, firing into his blob. So there you go. More of them are going to be hitting the dust. 4 kills to their name and 7 here, so starting to get some more damage. My guys are being whittled away about, you know, 2/3 strength on most of these. But these are very expensive troops that I'm knocking out, so I'm pretty happy about that. Meanwhile, my Greek corps is going to be pushing up slowly but surely. Just getting a little bit more cover of these slingers, and I'm just leapfrogging them slowly forward. And meanwhile, I'm just posturing here with my very heavy cavalry. You can see my opponent was thinking of charging into my archers, but just the mere presence of these cataphracts was enough to ward them off. And these cataphracts are something that would be crucial to Eastern tactics. Kind of the evolution of tactics on the East ended up going more towards, you know, lots of these mounted horse archers, and then to back that up, the elite super heavy shot cav to be able to charge in and knock out anything that tried to pursue the enemy. So send in these guys to hurry, harass, get the enemy finally get them pulled out of their formations, which is exactly what happened to the Romans at Carrhae, where they tried to give chase. And the more you chase these guys, well, just a small but elite core of cavalry is going to be pulled up, and they're just going to overwhelm and flatten anything that's not braced. So a really potent combo. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. Slow, methodical, phasing the enemy out, seizing ground. And what I want to do is just get to the point where if I knock out a couple more of his elite troops, then I can probably charge in with my cavalry corps back here. We can take a look at this real quick. Noble Blood Cav, Camel Spearmen, and some Noble Blood Cav on the other flank. So a nice combo. And again, as I've said, these Camel Spearmen do have bonuses versus cavalry in terms of frightening them. So it's a really nice group to charge in. Historically, I'm not quite sure how often Camel Spearmen or camel riding troops were in battle. I do know that there's a couple instances, I believe Herodotus tells of them in the battle of the kind of history of Persia, that camels were used in certain battles. I don't know if they were actually mounted in combat or if they were brought to battle and dismounted and kind of used there with a weird smell and look to scare the horses. But obviously, I think the Bedouin warriors eventually ended up using camels for warfare. So yeah, they did see their uses. But I don't think anywhere you would have seen like widespread big camel divisions. So maybe a bit more of a gimmick or an exotic unit. Although feel free to correct me if you know more. Anyway, here comes the slow methodical push. These guys moving forward. And over here, I'm actually going to let his cavalry charge in. I could have retreated, but I figured I would kill more of them. Misjudged that a little bit, so he does get to flatten my guys. But here come again the heavy cav to punish him for getting engaged. Meanwhile, he's going to move in with some more of these units. Thinking of charging in, he is going to get some of these archers within range to start to counter my slingers. They have a little bit of cover in the brush here, so they should be doing okay. So this charge definitely flattened my slingers. More charges are going to be coming in to chase away my Scythian horse archers. I'm really going to push them over to the side, keep my elite Persian archers standing here. And this is one of the things that I recommend you do in such situations is don't preemptively pull out with your archers. Just posture, so I'm bringing in these royal cataphracts, allowing my archers more time to charge. And you can see here, I'm going to dissuade him from moving in, and because I didn't move my archers, take a look at this, they're still firing. So that's an extra volley across 2 units that I'm going to be able to get in that would have been wasted had I repositioned my troops, and that's going to do a fair amount of damage to them. So they're going to keep firing and just pull back. That's one of the things that I definitely recommend you do is, if you have the micro for it, just don't move your archers until the last possible moment. Move other units nearby to protect them. If you're going to move anything, keep at least 1 unit firing and start to pull the other one back. That way you can continue to get some fire. And then immediately, once your opponent decides not to commit to that fight, turn your guys around immediately to get as many shots downrange as possible. I'm also pulling around on the right here with my noble horse archers. This is going to be my general's unit here. The reason I gave him, rather than cataphracts, was archers. I wanted him to be in a supporting role. And obviously having some armored archers was a nice change to my Scythian horse archers. Or my Sarmatian horse archers, excuse me. But the enemy nonetheless is going to get a big charge in, hits my cataphracts on the side. He's going to go after the other one, but my Greeks are going to brace, take that charge like champs. He does get through to the interior, but I have my mercenary Sarmatians here, pulling them back, so they're not only good to do some strikes early in the game, but also pull them back and kind of plug the gaps in your force by firing into troops. Royal Cataphracts are going to charge in and see that breach of the interior off, and these Sarmatians, meanwhile, are going to pivot around to this side and try and help out my general. He's down, 26 men here, just pretty bad, but the enemy is starting to drop pretty decently. They would probably be able to kill my general, so I'm going to pull up even closer and just make sure that we can see them off here. And I think with this point blank range fire, yeah, a couple of these guys are going to get sniped, so that should be enough to save my general. In all these in the center, the enemy has decided to pull back with the braced hoplites and royal cataphracts. That's enough to see him off. He did pull up with his own horse archers to try and fire into my cataphracts, but that's why I have slingers repositioned to fire into these guys. And yeah, these guys have pulled up, and now it's royal skirmishers. So like I said, these guys have some javelin. It's a little bit wasted on these eastern slingers. These guys would love to be using their armor piercing against someone with more than just a tunic. But hell, he needs to get rid of some of my ranged units on this side to be able to stand a chance. So he is melting some of these light archers with the help of these horse archers. And this one should be seen off, but he's paying a pretty deadly price here. Over here, I've been able to pull out my general, He's got 73 kills, pretty awesome. Another unit going to be chasing after him. So in this opportunity here, I'm going to just deny this charge, allow my units to get a flank attack. So only, you know, a couple of his horses do land. Yeah, that guy not even get a charge off. And then I turn about and I'm going to deal with him. So that's much better than taking an unnecessary charge close through here, and this will save me some preliminary damage. So that's always a thing I recommend you do, is always think about kind of, do I have to take the engagement that my opponent is proposing to me? Most often than not, the answer is no. So just continue to pull out, get some units on the flank to fire in, and then only when it's opportune, you know, when it's opportunistic enough for you to charge back in, then commit to that fight. So you can see here, really clean that up with minimal losses. And even if, you know, I had turned about and engaged, even if this was going to be a win for me, it's all about just getting small wins over time that really adds up by the end of the battle and minimizes your losses for when it really counts. You know, over here, I threatened a little bit of a charge against his skirmishers, but you can see just how much damage they do. They were able to do a lot of damage to my ranks here, so I figured it's not quite time to push in yet. I'm going to move up with my Eastern Slingers, and then bring in some of the armor of the Cataphracts as well. Let's go ahead and ride in the back saddle of one of these guys. I do wish that CA had the option back from Shogun 2, which is where when you press the insert key, it actually put you in the saddle of your unit. It was almost like seeing from the perspective of your force. I believe if you were watching an archer, you would actually see the bow drawn in front of you. If you were a spearman, you could see the spear in front of you. So anyways, that was some cool stuff. You know, the fight here is underway. I went ahead and chased the enemy skirmishers and other units. So they're going to be clobbered, and now here comes the Cataphracts charging into the back. Not necessarily the cleanest of strikes, but once they're committed, it's going to help add some weight to this engagement. Some more hoplites also going to be pushing up, seeing the enemy off. So here, this is an interesting fight where you see the nobles of the Persian forces charging in with Greeks at their side to see off the threat from the steppe. So that's kind of cool. And we do somewhat catch up with the Royal Horse Archers here, but they're going to pull out with pretty good speed. I had committed some of my mercenary Sarmatians who were out of ammo to charge into these Horse Archers. But with their heavy armor, they were able to fend off pretty decently in melee combat, shattering both of them at the border here. So the enemy is somewhat rallying, but their numbers are definitely depleted, excuse me. Scythian Royal Skirmishers do pretty good in melee, but like I said, overwhelming numbers plus the camels is going to see them off here. So with that, we're going to be able to close in the last remaining men. Let's watch this here. Noble Horse Archers with 61 men against, oh yeah, they're already shattered. So that's an easy win. We can watch the last of the troops here. My Cataphract's going to be charging into the underbrush, into these guys. And they've gotten a fair amount of kills on them. Oh no, 22. I thought I saw Chevs go up, but maybe that was for a different unit. But yeah, here goes Trample. Charge going to be pumped. My guys are really exhausted, so they're lucky that they're able to catch up to these guys. But with that, that should be the end of the battle. We're going to see off the enemy general pretty handily. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little change of pace, not only for the Total War battles, but also for kind of the strategy that you saw here. Like I said, always fun to play against the Sept tribes, and it's interesting what kind of builds you have to bring to counter them. And as always, we'll go ahead and end the replay, take a look at some of the stats, and I do recommend, as we head towards the end of this video, that you check out Epic History TV's series on Alexander the Great. Like I said, I had a helping hand in that, and I guarantee it's going to be awesome, so definitely go ahead and take a look at that, and tell Epic History TV that Invicta says hi. Anyways, with the final replay here, you can see I brought twice as many men as my opponent. He got a fair amount of kills with these armored horse archers, so they always do good work. Even his steppe noble lancers, despite taking so many casualties, still got a lot of kills. But that's why I went, like I said, with a bit of a Skaven tactic here. Some fodder units, Eastern Slingers, and some of these Persian light archers were most of the things that fed kills. Oh man, these Eastern spearmen cannot hold for anything. That's not necessarily historically accurate. They probably would have been able to hold up to a cavalry charge just because you can brace. But yeah, they are still pretty flimsy troops. I mean, you saw mercenary hoplites or even Greek hoplites historically come toe-to-toe with these guys and just slash through them. The armor discrepancy just heavily favoring the hoplites. So in that type of engagement, I probably would have bet on hoplites. When it came to steppe noble lancers charging into these guys, risky. You don't necessarily see cavalry charge into brace infantry like that in this battle, but if they're slightly disrupted, then yeah, for sure, these guys probably would have taught them a lesson. Mercenary Sarmatian Horse Archers doing a fair amount of damage, just plucking at the enemy. And here I think most of the kills being done by my Cavalry Corps, a lot of the cleaning up operations, and also the Elite Persian Archers doing work, Slingers as well. So overall, a lot of kills spread around, and that's what you get. Big army here with lots of kills across the board, trading pretty evenly with my opponent, but he just didn't have that many lives to sell, whereas I had plenty. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. See you in the next one. Peace out.